Good morning. Today is May 1st, and I'm on the phone with Jeff Cuddeback. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Andrew.
And first of all, congratulations on your recent result at Ironman, Arizona.
Thank you.
And but those results at Ironman, Arizona come from many years of hard work. How many years have you been in triathlon?
I started back in 1983, my first season. So I was 24 years old.
So 25 years ago, a quarter century ago.
Yep, 25 years, months actually.
What was your first race?
Yeah, it was the Cypress Gardens Triathlon in Cypress Gardens, Florida at the resort, 1983. And it was early April of 1983. That was my first race. And I finished third place overall in that race. I realized that I might be onto something good here.
And what was your athletic background prior to April 1983 when you did your first triathlon?
I was a high school swimmer and Division III college swimmer. Went to Gettysburg College and swam. So I've been swimming pretty much all my life.
And how did you train for that particular event back in 1983? How much time did you spend swimming, running, and cycling?
Oh, well, that's a great question. Of course, I was very young and new to the sport, so I was a very good swimmer and was still swimming. I graduated from college in 1980, so I was only a couple of years removed from collegiate swimming, and just to stay in shape, I was still swimming on a pretty regular basis. And then when I got into triathlon, because that's what I was good at, that's what I mostly did. And I was a very poor runner and was constantly injuring myself running because I had a great engine but really bad wheels, so to speak. And I trained in running like I thought you needed, like I used to training and swimming, which is a lot of hard efforts all the time. So I'd go out and try to run a 7-minute or even a 6-minute mile, and my heart and lungs were fine, but I could hardly do 8-minute miles. So I was constantly getting hurt. So long story short, I basically trained very little on the run because I was always injured, and I would just run maybe 1 or 2 times before the race, near the race, and it took me all week just to recover, so I wasn't hobbling around. Swam a lot, pretty much, 5-6 times a day, and then I cycled and learned to ride the bike, and we used to do always hard rides. Let's make it easy rides. It's all very high intensity, and anywhere from 20 to 40-mile bike rides and occasional 60-mile rides, but mostly much shorter, very, very hard stuff. How
has so after you completed your first race, I guess 25 years ago, did you change after that the way you trained, or did you wait until you went to longer distances to change the way you trained?
No, within a couple of years of starting the sport, Andrew, I figured it out that I was training completely wrong, and back then you could have a great swim and a pretty darn good bike, and then just be workmanlike on the run, and you could still be competitive. I was winning age groups and winning races outright with very slow run time, but I was, you get a good lead and then you just suffer. And, if it's a 5K sprint or even if it's a 10K, lots of times you can hang on. Certainly good enough to win the age group, if not outright overall the race. But I was always hurt. And I remember at the USTS I think it was the 1983, the Tampa Bay USTS, and the distances then were 2K, 40K, 15K. And I had a great swim on a pretty darn good bike, and I'm suffering on the run like a dog, and getting passed by the women pros and other folks and going, you know what, this isn't right. I'm a much better athlete than this. There's got to be a better way. And I stopped training so much in the water, and I just made a concerted effort that you've got to learn how to run. And that required much more consistency, and not every run as hard as you can go, like I was trained in swimming. So within the first couple of years, I started to figure it out. But the run is still my challenge. You know, and I've learned if you can run, you can race. And ultimately it comes down to the run. And you just can't have a bad run if you want to be competitive.
Correct. When did you move to longer distances racing?
Well, I've been doing long distance all along. I mean, I went to Hawaii in 1985, just 2 years after I started the sport, and had good success there. That was before we had the aero bars, and it was actually my best finish ever. I was 20th place there in 1985, and had a good swim out in 50 minutes. And at the time, I think my bike split was around 5.5 hours, something close to that. And then I ran a high 3:30, which at the time was very, very good for me. So I've been at it for a long time, and I've enjoyed the long distance. The challenge there is managing the race, and because the distance is so long, you can't at any one point really be all out. You've got to respect the distance, respect your fitness or lack thereof, and manage the race. So I enjoy that distance. I enjoy all the distances actually. The sprints and the Olympics, they have very unique challenges too.
How did your preparation for 1985 Ironman Hawaii compare to the last time you went in Hawaii? And I believe that was 2 years ago or a year ago?
And no, it was actually 5 years. 2003 was my last Hawaii. Well, my run was severely deficient back then, and that was only my third season of racing and training. So I didn't have a huge fitness stage in triathlon. I was still a very good swimmer, and the emphasis was more on the swimming and the biking, and it was just kind of holding on for the run. Over the years, I've tried to become a much better runner and just develop your fitness. You know, it's kind of unique because you're kind of at your prime between 25 and 35 as far as endurance sports. I'm just getting into my prime in 1985, so there's a big learning curve that I've tried to approach and get better at. 4 years later, just in 1989, I dropped my time by 1 hour and 8 minutes, and a lot of that was on the bike due to the aero bars, but I ran 15 or 17 minutes better too. So, and I think that was due to a couple things. One, you're in better shape, you have more fitness, you're smarter about how to race, and you're training better. You're focusing more on your weakness. Back in '89, I did a ton, the most bike mileage I've ever done, ever. It just monster miles for me, 300 plus, some weeks 400 on the bike, and that paid off. I've never done that kind of mileage since, and I'm still riding not far off the kind of content that I was doing when I was 10 and 15 years younger.
Going back to your aero bar use in 1989 versus 1985, and also having a better run, as you said, do you think that being in the aero position and being a little bit further forward than you were in 1985, did that help you save your legs for the run?
I have no idea. I don't know. It's too hard to tell. I don't know if to save my life. I'm suffering either way. In '89, I really went back to race, and I really keyed on that race. And I had the race of my life up until 10K to go when I just completely imploded and had couldn't hold the fluid anymore. Quarter mile from the finish, right on the lead drive, and make the turn for the finish line, I had to stop. My back muscles completely spasmed on me, and I fell over, and I almost hit the ground. And I basically walked and jogged in the last 2 minutes of the race, and 5 guys passed me at that point. I went from 18th to 23rd overall and lost all sorts of time. And so I can't say that my run was better because of the aero bars. It was just I'm just a better athlete then, and was much more aggressive than in '85. In '85, I way overhydrated, didn't respect the need for salt, and I ended up having to eat 9 times on the race. so I lost probably 9 or 10 minutes alone just having to stop in the restroom because I drank too much. I did make that mistake in '89, probably drank not enough, and ended up not being able to digest the fluids that were out there on the course, the calories I was taking. So, you learn every year, and it's part of the challenge. That's why you have to show up and do the race. You don't phone in your time. You got to show up.
Recently, 2 weeks ago, you had a great finish at Ironman, Arizona. And let's consider also you have a 25 years basically of base. So you have a huge base compared to many other participants in the sport. What did you do specifically or even generally for your preparation for Ironman, Arizona? Are you still doing those huge volumes you used to do? Or have you become more methodical and scientific about your training?
I'm a month shot at 50 now, so I don't have the time nor the energy or the recovery capabilities to go out and do tremendous amount of mileage. I've always been kind of a low mileage guy anyway, even back in the day, with the exception of that 1 year on the bike. But typically in years past, I'll go into Ironman dramatically undertrained on the run, and then just get by on guts alone, and try to hang on for the run, and then overtrain on the bike and swim. And this year in particular, and starting last year too, I de-emphasized the swim and the bike and really focused much more on my running and try to eliminate that weakness. And so what I did to compensate for the shorter mileage on the bike, as I got on PowerCranks February of last year, that was in '07, and I started riding them several times per week. Initially you could only last a couple 15, 20 minutes on it, but it built up to an hour to an hour and a half, and that's still where I am now as far as the duration on the PowerCranks. But what I found was using the PowerCranks, I was able to maximize my training time and get the benefits or similar benefits in my mind that I might get in a road ride that could be several times longer than the amount of time I spent on the trainer. And I've got my PowerCranks on my trainer, on my stationary bike. And last year in preparation for the season, I was riding them 3 to 4, sometimes 5 times per week. And this year, pretty much just twice per week, but high intensity and always at least half of it down in the drops in the aero position, where I think for triathletes you get the greatest benefit with the PowerCranks. It's especially good for triathletes in the aero position because, as you know, your hip angle is closed in the aero position, and most cyclists and triathletes who are in that position, they're found to pushing with one leg and unloading with the opposite. And with the crank, you've got to be lifting the whole time, and your body finds a way to be more efficient in the aero position. And I certainly found that last year at the short distance and 70.3 distances. My concern going into Ironman was we were going to hold up for a 5+ hour event. And to my happiness there, it certainly did. I was able to ride in Arizona similar times that I've been doing for the last 8 or 10 years at Ironman distance with significantly less number of hours on the bike. Normally, or this time frame going into Arizona, I was riding on average about 8 to 12 hours per week, almost never over 12, and probably much closer to 11 hours with a Computrainer ride on Tuesday, 2 PowerCrank rides, 1 on Wednesday, 1 on Thursday, typically Friday off, Saturday a group tempo ride, and then Sunday my 4 to 5 hour bike ride. And that's it. That's what we did. And you're always a little bit hesitant when you don't seem to have the bike miles that you normally have. But my quality of training, I think, has been as good as it ever has this season. And I'm learning as you get older, it's more about power and being able to sustain that for a period of time. And I've always had good endurance. I've just lacked the power. And with the PowerCranks, I think I've been able to develop more power, more efficiency in the aero position. And that's essential for triathletes to have.
You also just mentioned that you train on a Computrainer. We've gotten many reports that from users who also own PowerCranks and Computrainers that they've seen their spin scan numbers increase. What improvements have you seen directly on the Computrainer that you can correlate to your PowerCranks usage?
What I've seen is I've been doing lactate threshold testing, power testing, and in a 8-week period, using the cranks twice a week and the Computrainer once per week, I was able to increase my wattage, my lactate threshold by 24 watts in an 8-week period, which is very significant. And I think it's a combination of continued use with the power cranks and the intensity that I put forth in that, and sustained intervals of between 3 and 10 to 15 minutes in the aero position, and the good feedback that you get with the Computrainer, where you're able to actually look at your watts and your power outage and see how that compares to your previous lactate threshold test, and even get a better feel for what is a legitimate level of effort given the distance that you're training for.
So you saw great benefits on your cycling. Do you feel that PowerCranks have also helped your running just because of the mechanics of the pedaling and how those translate over also to running?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know, Andrew. I don't know. I know it helps with my cycling. I've run more, better, consistent miles than I ever have, and I've been doing that for 2 years, and I've really been concentrating on the run. So, and that's at the same time that I started up with PowerCranks. So they both are correlated. They're both correlated. I don't know if it's causal or not. I mean, I'm running better now than I have in many, many years. I'm running more consistently. I'm not injured. I feel like it's certainly not hurting me, the PowerCrank, on my run. And I will typically do on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, when I do my PowerCrank training, get off the bike and run 3 to 8 miles. Routinely do that. And those runs are invariably very good. They're always good. And so I think from that standpoint, yeah, it probably is helping. But is it going to make you a better runner if you're not doing your run homework? I don't think so. But it certainly is a good compliment to the training that you're doing.
So my understanding then is you're training less now, you're doing a better quality training, and you're beating everybody in your age group and placing very high overall. Kind of similar to a Steve Larsen, and many people take those results kind of saying it's impossible to achieve those results by training very few hours, by basically bringing down your volume, but yet achieving that.
Yeah.
Any comment on that?
Yeah, generally I think that's true. A guy like Steve Larsen is a very experienced athlete who has a huge volume and has been racing and training at a very elite level for a long, long time. I wouldn't coach all my athletes the way I'm training myself, because a lot of times you've got to have the base and the neuromuscular integrity in order to maintain the kind of intensity that I'm trying to do, and then still have the confidence to go long. I'm trying to do everything. I'm obviously want to do well in Hawaii, but I'm racing Olympic distance. I'm racing 70.3 distance. I'm doing a lot of racing across different distances, and as a result, you need a real healthy dose of intensity. And I know how to go long already. I have a good endurance base, and typically my limiter is not the ability to go out and suffer for 9 or 10 hours in an Ironman. It's to go out and to push at a level that is competitive, where you've got to go hard. And I think that's one of the areas where most, at least Ironman athletes, make a mistake, is that they have a tendency just to log miles at the expense of intensity. And for most of us, just by the nature of the sport, the kind of training we're doing is submaximal. It's all endurance-based training. So when you go on a 3 hour, 2 hour, even a 1 hour bike ride, that's highly aerobic effort, and you can only go so hard for a certain part of that. So if you're always just going long and relatively easy, your body is never learning how to go fast. And as I get older, it gets harder and harder to be quick. And you've got to maintain, in my mind, a high level of intensity in all three disciplines. And for me, especially on the run, because it's hard to go fast in an 18-mile silly training day when you're going out and you're thinking about Ironman. But you got to do parts of that, I believe, at much faster than Ironman race effort. Very hard to kind of harden your body to the kind of conditions you're going to see in the marathon during the Ironman. And the same goes true for the bike. In the past, I was always a big, if I'm not getting 200, 250, 300 miles a week on the bike, that's what I'd be logging. And that's where my focus was. And I go pretty hard at some of those bike rides, but truth be known, there's not a lot of intervals or anything. It's just kind of upper tempo work. And what I've done differently here is incorporated the 2 PowerCranks rides, which are very high intensity. Even when you're going easy, you're still working hard. That's what I love about it. And when you get down in the aero position and you're going hard, man, you're really going hard. And that makes riding on the road feel easy when you're in the aero position. And so those 2 PowerCrank rides incorporated with the Computrainer ride, which also is high intensity. I'm getting 3 high-intensity rides and getting some recovery, and then a group ride, which is easy, a group tempo ride that is easy in comparison to what I've been doing earlier in the week, and then a long, over-distance, relatively easy, 5-hour ride. And for me, that's working. And so for a guy like Steve to say he's only riding, X number of hours per week, I don't doubt at all what he's saying, especially if he's doing his homework on the PowerCranks, because he can do it. He's the athlete. He's got the wherewithal to do it. Not all athletes can. Certainly a guy that's only got 2 years into the sport and he just having to do intensity, and he's 50 years old and he wants to go do Ironman, and he thinks he's going to have a hard time with a program like that. He's got to build the base. But once your base is established, you don't need to be doing huge amounts of body. I'm convinced that's true. In fact, I think you're better off if you do less often, because your quality of your workouts are better and you go into the race a little bit more rested. Your form is better, your technique is better. And I've always said you're better to be a little bit under fitness, but especially rested and healthy going into an Ironman than the other way around. In unbelievably great shape with fatigue and, injury lurking back.
So your philosophy for training, which is kind of similar to Steve Larsen, is less volume, higher intensity, and then use the extra time for rest, versus a Joe Boness kind of philosophy, active recovery, and go out and race as much as you can.
I guess generally speaking that's true. I have, going into Arizona, I had more days off, complete days off where I did nothing than I'd ever have going into an Ironman. And then I had a lot of really easy days. But in the majority of the time, I'm doing 2 and 3 workouts per day. I am training very consistent. It's just that with the exception of my run mileage, which is more than normal, my cycling and swimming especially have been very, very low. And I think what you're saying is true. Now, I don't really know how Joe trains. I know he does a lot of active recovery. He believes in that and racing a lot. And his body obviously takes it. There's no way I could do the kind of volumes and racing at the intensity that I like to race at on Joe Boness's race schedule. There's no way. I'm still feeling some of the residual fatigue from Ironman Arizona. And here we are going to be 3 weeks this coming Sunday. And yesterday was my first run of any significance. So, I believe in resting the body, doing some active recovery, but not killing yourself. The week after Ironman, I did nothing for 4 days other than just walk around and, get some massage therapy. And then subsequent to that, I started feeling like I could bike ride. And then Saturday, 6 days after Arizona, I went out and did the first time on the bike. I did the group tempo ride and rode incredibly good. And the best I've ever felt after an Ironman. So I think going into Arizona this year, I was, fairly fit, not overtrained, certainly, and I think that helped with my recovery. And I'm back running okay now, and I'm going to do Gulf Coast next week on May 11th. And I've never raced 3 weeks after an Ironman before, or 4 weeks. I'm curious to see how I'll perform there.
And going back to Ironman Arizona, you had a fantastic race on the bike. You want to share a little bit more about that part of the race?
The bike was an unbelievably fun day for me in a sense because I've never done a loose course like that. Most of the Ironmans I've done is just in one big course. Like Kona, Coeur d'Alene was the only two-looper that I've done. And I had a very bad bike ride back then in 05. So I wasn't looking forward to a two-loop or a three-loop course. And it was a windy day. Windy. 20 mile an hour sustained with gusts up to 25 and maybe even a little bit more. So we were fighting the wind going out and then had killer tailwind coming back. Especially the last 10 miles out and the 10 miles immediately turn around. Straight into your face and then killer tailwind coming. And the first lap on the bike, I felt like I was pushing pretty hard. And I moved up. I was fifth out of the water, and I moved up to, I believe I was second place when we got to the turn, the turnaround on the bike. And then we had the really nice tailwind, and I'm doing 33, 35 miles an hour, and I'm feeling it already, Andrew. My hip flexors and mostly my glutes and my hamstring insertion. I'm going, oh no, my hips are hurting me and my back, and I'm thinking, gosh, my day is ending and it's way too soon to be feeling this bad. And I kind of maybe just backed off maybe just slightly a little bit, thinking that I'm going to be better on the second loop. And on the second loop, going into the wind, I'm actually small chaining the first two loops, and I'm going up at between 13 and 16 miles an hour into the wind on this very slight 1% to 2% hill. It's a 10-mile hill there. And I'm going, gosh, you're racing. And the goal pace is 22 miles an hour, and I'm doing 15. So that messes with your head a little bit, but everyone's suffering. And 3 guys that I passed earlier all went by me on the bike. And on the hill going up there, and I made the turn, and I'm going, and my second split was a little bit slower than the first, and I'm getting tired. But I just said, you know what, you just got to manage this race. You're in shape to do this. You're going to be all right. And when I got to the third loop now and made the left turn, and you got the 10-mile easy slight climb into dead on into the wind, I just made up on my mind, and this is so weird and great at the same time. I just resolved, I said, you know what, you got to go faster here. And I was big chaining it, and previously where I was going small chain, I was large chain, and I was doing 18 to 20, and I was just, my legs opened up, I was down in the drops, I felt good, all my aches and pains had gone away, I was feeling really strong, and 3 guys that had passed me on the second loop, I caught them, all 3 of them on the climb, and I went by them strong, and I'm killing it, and by the time you get to the top, it's all tailwind coming home, and it's only 40 more minutes, and I've already mentally finished the bike ride, so this is going to be easy. Coming home, tailwind, not a problem. And got off on the bike and ended up with the 5:02 split, which was one of the quicker ones for the amateurs. And when I went back later on in the week and I checked my splits, my third loop was actually my fastest. And I think I was one of the few, I think there was one other pro that managed to negative split, but that's one thing that I really focus with my athletes and myself in training is build your effort each day, regardless of how long you're out there on the bike or on the run or even on the swim. Try to be going harder the last third, the last half than you did the first half. Build all your effort. And darn it if it didn't happen there on the bike. It was just great. It's just the way I envisioned, the way I trained. and it all came together.
So you had a pretty good bike split, but this was not the only race in which you had good bike splits, because you are a course record holder in some pretty important races. Can you tell me a little bit more about which course records you still hold?
I held records, my age group records, 35, the 40, and the 45-year-old age group records, and at one point I had all three of them simultaneously. Subsequently, they've been broken. One just a couple of years ago on a really pretty pedestrian day by Hawaii. I think it was broken by 11 or 12 seconds, so it wasn't by much. And then I think my time in Florida was a course record back in 2002. I went 9/11 there. I'm not sure. I think Joe has just subsequently broken that. Vanessa may have that now. I'm not really sure. And then this past time in Arizona, my time was a couple minutes faster than the record time that Scott Molina set back in 2005. First year they had the course. Yeah, so that's it. Those are whatever records I may or may not have anymore. The only one that I know of, Arizona, I know that was a new course record.
Which is fantastic to know you had all these records at one point. Let's talk a little bit about your coaching. You are a active athlete and you are also a full-time coach.
Yes, I am. Yeah. And I love it. I've been doing it for coaching triathletes now for, I guess it's going on 14 or 15 years. And my background was as a swim coach. I did a lot of coaching, college and high school teams and such. But when I got into triathlon, over a period of time, people started asking me about, training techniques and such. And I started up my Training Inc., my coaching company, and been very active at it in the last 6-7 years now, and it's really taken off. Full-time job for me, and between that and my own training and running my wife's chiropractic office and plus the family, I'm pretty darn busy. But I love it. I love the coaching. I think one of the unique things that I might add or bring to the coaching that a lot of other very accomplished athletes that are coaching now is the fact that I'm still racing. I'm still racing at an elite level, and I can relate, I think, very, very well, especially to the age group athlete, the elite age grouper, or the age grouper that's trying to maximize his training time and get fit with maybe a little bit less training, still maintain a balanced life, and stay married and see their kids and make the soccer games and do all the things that a mom or dad needs to do, but still be competitive. I can do that. I can help the athlete do that. I do that myself. That's what I'm living. So, firsthand experience on how to be successful with that kind of program.
Last year, or in the past 2 years, you've had a lot of your athletes get started on PowerCranks, incorporating PowerCranks into their training. What type of a protocol? How do you get them started on PowerCranks? Since the first rides tend to be very short, and people might kind of get bummed out about their lack or inability to do their traditional mileage on a bike now that they are on PowerCranks.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, one, I tell them it's going to be hard, and I prepare them, and don't expect to go more than 5 minutes the first day, and if you go 5, and I throw out a little, I laugh at maybe, I forget, 10 or 15 minutes, and I said, look, if you can go 10 minutes, you did as good as me, and so I throw that out, and they are all competitive, so they all want to beat Cuddeback on the cranks, which is great, because if they do that, then I know they're going to succeed. And so, we shoot for 5 to 10 minutes nonstop that first day. Let them know that it's okay to stop and rest, but just stay on the bike. And while you're resting, go ahead and rest, and then pick it up again. And we try to do no less than 15 minutes initially when they first get on, across all their rest times.
and I have them get on the cranks every day. Stay off the road, or if they have them on their road bike, then just be prepared to, you got to ride the cranks 15 minutes every day for a week. And once they can get past that, they see a very quick learning curve. And if you can get on the cranks consistently across a short period of time, over a couple weeks, very quickly you're going to be able to last 30 to 40 minutes. And then when you get to 30 minutes, it's kind of like this. Okay, now we can move forward, and then it's just a matter of staying consistent and mental toughness to be out there any longer. And we are doing all these in the upright position, in the non-aero position. And the idea is just to spin, just to learn how to move your feet and move your legs efficiently, so that you're trying to maintain even pressure on the pedals and eliminate the dead spots and everything. And when they get to that point where they can go 30 minutes, then we start implementing, getting down into the aero position for a short period of time. Saying, look, let's just go for a minute, go for 2 minutes, and build up to where they're going 5 and 10 minutes. And then ultimately, as they are on it for a period of months, the percentage of time that they're in the traditional road position decreases, and they spend an increasing percentage in the tri position. And I encourage my athletes to be on anywhere between 3 and 4 times per week, and then supplement that with road riding. And I find that works really well for most of them. And the challenge, of course, is getting past that initial learning curve and sticking with it for the first 2-3 weeks that you need to do. Once you get past that, it's exciting because every day is a challenge. You know that you're getting the biggest bang for your training buck. And most of my athletes love getting on the cranks because it's always something new and exciting and a difficult challenge for them. And they feel good about it when they finish. You get 30 minutes, an hour on the cranks. It's like whatever, an hour and a half, 2 hours on the road, depending on how hard you're working.
And what has in terms of your athletes, who was able to go the longest? What was the longest time somebody could go on the first time on the cranks?
Oh, the first time, like 15 minutes.
Which is the same time that you were able to go, 15 minutes the first time. What kind of cadences?
Initially very slow. They're, and that's the challenge. They're in the big gear for the most part, and they're only going, they're the big chain, and they're only going 60, 65, 70. I, as a matter of course, now will warm up at the small chain, and I'll be doing 90 plus. And I find that that's just incredibly good neuromuscularly for you, because you're learning how to teach your legs to move quickly, even though there's no resistance. You know, from a power standpoint, it's not doing a lot, but it's certainly teaching you how to be efficient and a good pedaler on the bike. And then, and if you can do that, then you can push 90 RPMs in the large chain, no problem. And now we're working on power, and that's the ultimate goal. Is we do our intervals, big chain, hard, in the aero position, and when you can do that, then it makes road riding really easy, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking, on PowerCranks I, everything is relatively speaking. Correct.
Yeah.
And have your athletes reported improvement sensations in their running once they get off the bike, on the PowerCranks bike, and go out? And I don't know if you have them do bricks or not.
Yep. A lot of them are doing off the cranks. Most people say that they're feeling good. They're able to maintain at least the same kind of cadence that they would be running when they're fresh. It's hard to say, Andrew, if they're actually running faster yet. I know they're running more consistently, and they're able to do the bricks, and that's the thing. I want them coming off with fatigued legs and be able to go and do it. I think in theory it makes sense because you're going to be engaging the hamstrings a lot and hip flexors, same motion when you're running. So from that standpoint, I think it's very beneficial. I thought you were going to ask what's the longest with the guys that's been on PowerCranks. I've got one fellow in Atlanta who can sit on that thing for 3 and 4 hours. He's down in the basement. It's just a nut. And he's done even.
4 hours on PowerCranks, big chain ringer
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. It's not all big chain, but he's on the cranks for 4+ hours. I'll tell you this: my longest is an hour and 40 minutes, and I think it just came down to I just felt like I had other things I needed to go do that day, but I don't think you need to be on them for a huge amount of time. It seems like 1 hour, you start to see a really big learning curve. You get to between 1 hour and an hour and a half. I think if you can do that, you probably can. It's just a matter of sitting in and then being stubborn, and you can do another 2 hours or 3 hours. But I don't know what huge benefit my guy doing 4 and 5 hours on the PowerCranks gained. I guess he just didn't want to go out on the road and do his long run, on a long ride on the road, so he did it on the crank. So it's got to be harder. But I think, generally speaking, you can get maximum potential gain in the first hour to an hour and a half on the cranks. I'm not advocating 4-hour PowerCrank workouts or trainer workouts for that matter. I don't advocate that at all. I think if you're going to do a long ride, you're better off on the road doing it. But for guys that have only an hour to train or an hour and a half, and instead of getting out on their bike and spinning around in the neighborhood for an hour, what kind of workout can you get with that? Typically, you roll out of the garage and you go ride for an hour. Usually, it's not very good quality. On the cranks, you can go as hard as you want, and you get a great workout in an hour.
Have you seen any of your athletes, or even maybe yourself, people who had some leg discrepancies in terms of power, improve the smoothness of the pedal stroke and maybe even their better running stability?
I found in myself, I guess the evenness of my pedaling has improved. I've got a little hitch with my left hip, and it kind of throws out, and I lose power on the upstroke, and the cranks have certainly helped with that. My other athletes, for the most part, they just complain about how hard they are, and I tell them to quit the trying and keep doing it. You're going to get better, and they do. Once again, with the running, I don't know. I know it's not hurting them. I can't say for sure if they're faster runners using PowerCranks, but there's no question they're better cyclists.
And one last question here. Your training philosophy as a coach, what are your basic training principles when people come to you? What do you tell them? How do you structure their training to prepare for an Ironman or a half Ironman?
I tell them that, one, we've got to eliminate our weakness. So whatever your worst event is, your worst discipline is, you've got to learn to love that, embrace that, and get excited about that. Try to make that your best event. And if you can eliminate your worst event and make it your best, you're automatically going to be a much better Ironman. Number two is that I focus on frequency over duration. So we will do multiple workouts per week, per discipline, and oftentimes doubles and triples per day, depending on the individual's unique time constraints. But the focus is, and for most part, that usually occurs with the run. A lot of people will only run maybe 3 times per week, and they're doing, they might do 30 miles, 3 runs of 10 miles. And I'll take that same 30 miles that they're putting towards their training each week, but we'll do that across 5 to 6 workouts. And so now the quality of those runs necessarily are going to improve, and they're not going to be so beat up and tired from, a Monday ride to a run from, to a Thursday or Friday next time they're out. So by the short, frequent workouts, you maintain the muscle memory from one day to the next, so you're not relearning that exercise each time you go out and train. And number two, the quality is better. And as our quality improves, our consistency improves, then over a period of time, if we're doing Ironman, we stretch out those long runs. And of course the long bikes too. But generally, duration is de-emphasized. It's frequency of workouts is emphasized. And this holds true both on the bike and on the swim also. You know, if you look at the swimmers, a lot of people are not good swimmers, and they'll swim, 3 times per week with masters, and because they don't have a swimming background, halfway through that 4,000-yard workout, they're done. They're toast, and they don't come back to the pool again for another 2 or 3 days. They've forgotten the benefits. Their body has forgotten the benefits of the stroke patterns from day 1 until day 2. So if they're normally doing 9,000 yards a week, I'll typically get them out of master's practice and we'll swim 1,500 to 2,000 per workout, 5 days a week, 4 days a week. So we're still doing 9,000 yards, but we're doing it across 5 days. And now the muscle memory from one day to the next is maintained, their quality goes up, and they learn to swim. They get much better.
Great information there. My other question is, how many athletes do you coach, or do you have a lot of openings for new athletes?
I'm very busy. I have openings for, that's always changing. People are changing schedules. There may be an athlete dropping out. And usually when somebody has been going in another direction, I get the phone call or the email for an athlete. I'm always open to talk to any potential athlete. The only thing that I ask is that they try their very best. They listen to me as a coach and willing to try something new and give it a good 6 weeks to 2 months before they pass judgment. Invariably, my athletes are very happy with the result and with the coaching. It is very different than a lot of ways people are used to training. So that that's the one thing you just kind of got to get into your mindset that hey, this may be a different approach. We're less concerned about logging great mileage and having bragging rights in the training logs, and it's more about frequency, and it's more about working hard and training hard. One thing too that is very important is the goal setting and picking your race season out correctly so that we peak at the right time and we use training races as stepping stones moving towards our number 1A race. But by all means, I'm happy to talk to anyone that's interested and wants to call me and discuss training philosophies, and look forward to their feedback too. And
so it's okay for people to call you?
It's absolutely. They can call me. They can email me at jcuddeback@cfl.rr.com, or they can contact me through my website at jeffcuddeback.com. And at jeffcuddeback.com, they've got all sorts of information about my coaching philosophy and how I may be able to help you, and all my contact information also.
And lastly, a word of advice for first-time PowerCranks users or athletes who are thinking about getting on PowerCranks.
Gosh, there's so much good to say. One is that your training time is going to be maximized. You're not going to waste your time. So if you're a busy person that has limited training time, PowerCranks is by far the best training tool that I've ever run across for your biggest bang for your training time buck you possibly could get. They absolutely will improve your cycling. And thirdly, don't get discouraged when you can only last 5 minutes on it. Get on that thing every day for a couple of weeks, and very quickly your body has this innate intelligence. It will figure out how to turn the crank, and you'll become a much better cyclist.
Great. Jeff, I want to thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you in Kona, and hopefully you'll set some more records between now and Kona, or even at Kona.
Well, we just can't control the time. All you can do is try your best, and certainly we'll be out there to do that. And I appreciate your time too, Andrew. Thanks for the great questions. It's always fun to discuss in retrospect. Always good.
Great. And good luck in your race next week. And for those people listening, more information about Jeff can be found on our website under the coaches page. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.